You are now listening to Scheduling Fate, hosted by author and counseling astrologer Jamie McGee. For more information, please go to schedulingfate.com. Hi there, and welcome back to our series about your 2025 horoscopes. Today, our topic is going to be about Venus in retrograde, which is always a significant transit. But where this Venus retrograde is happening this year, I think it's definitely going to give us some added weight because, again, the theme of this year is standing astride two worlds. We're leaving one big story and stepping into a new one, but there's a lot of big endings and a lot of big beginnings that have to happen simultaneously. All right, so just to give you some dates, mark this on your calendar. And again, if you're in the Moon Gateway membership, it's already going to be on your calendar. You're going to have some great little insights to work with as this time approaches next year or even looking ahead right now. All right, so Venus will enter its shadow on January 28th, 2025. And what that means is that Venus is going to touch the degree that for the first time that it will retrograde back to. It's going to travel from 24 degrees of Pisces all the way to 10 degrees of Aries, stop on March 1st, and then move into retrograde. It will travel back over those same degrees, that same story, whatever's unfolding in your life until April the 12th at 24 degrees when it hits Pisces. And then it's going to say, okay, I've seen it, I've reviewed it. Now I'm going to integrate it. And then from April 12th all the way to May 16th, that's when you're going to start integrating lessons that Venus has taught you. And some interesting things during this course of time, Venus will have some of the last conversations with both Neptune and Saturn before they move into Aries for the first time. They will retrograde back. Venus will be in retrograde very close to Neptune during the Aries eclipse that we have in March too, which adds some potent energy to that story. Now, I just wanted to kind of take a sidebar here and talk about Venus retrograde in a natal chart. Now, if you do not know if Venus is retrograde in your chart or anything about your natal chart, there's a link for a free one underneath this broadcast. I recommend that you grab that. But Venus in retrograde, some of us are born with this, and it's an interesting placement to have. And I think if you think about it from a natal perspective, that's going to help us apply it to how collectively we are going to feel this energy as we move through it. So if you were born with this in any sign, doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be Pisces and Aries where it's retrograding in 2025. It brings a very rich and introspective quality to things that Venus rules, which are love, relationships, self-worth, resources, and values. It always encourages these natives to deeply contemplate their relationships and ask them what it truly means. And because they are going so deep, because they go past the superficial, this is good enough for now, this is just a phase I'm going through, sometimes that brings more turbulence, especially if they're more spiritually deeper or more inclined to go into deeper levels than the partners that they have. However, Venus teaches a very powerful lesson about evaluation, healing, and personal growth. It teaches you about authentic love, authentic values, and it results in a stronger, more self-assured approach to both relationships and personal expansion and values. So if you have your Venus that is in retrograde, you are singing this song, and we're all going to jump into that same rhythm with you as we move through 2025. All right, so we are going to experience this energy of Venus in retrograde in 2025 across two signs, the very end of Pisces and the very beginning of Aries. So before we get into the horoscopes, we're going to talk about how these two would feel because there's a different energy to them. It's water and it's mutable and it's Aries and it's cardinal. Water, I'm ready to change. Aries, I'm ready to launch into my own direction. It's all about me. But Venus in retrograde in Aries is going to encourage a reevaluation of personal desires, your self-worth, your assertiveness in your relationships. Aries is a very bold and independent energy or archetype, which makes this retrograde a great time to reflect on personal needs of love and questioning how well or challenging your impulsive choices when it comes to love and finances and investing have worked out for you. And how can you readjust this? Really think about how you can love yourself and why you do things. Is it because of the soul or is it because of the ego? Wherever Aries is in your chart, whatever house this is in, that's what's going to amplify. Now, Venus in Pisces is a little bit of a different story because when Venus retrograde occurs in Pisces, it brings an extra layer of emotional depth and spiritual inquiry. It amplifies themes of compassion, of course, love and values as well, but also idealism and creativity. Because Venus is exalted in Pisces. It loves being in Pisces. It operates on a very empathic rhythm here. However, the retrograde does bring complexity because Pisces energy brings in this emphasis of healing and unconditional love. It doesn't matter how toxic or brilliant or healthy or challenging the relationship is, the love is unconditional in Pisces world. So during a Venus retrograde in Pisces, people could feel drawn to forgive past hurts, to practice self compassion, to seek closure from past emotional wounds, which is always a good thing. But again, we need to have healthy boundaries at the same time. So that's going to be one of the topics that comes up. I can forgive you, but I have to have a healthy boundary between you and I because I can't move into that ocean of toxicity with you. However, I can love you from a distance or I can love you side by side, but we're going to have this healthy boundary between us. Some of the things you want to be aware of around this period of time, especially because Venus is going to be talking to Neptune, who is getting ready to really wrap up its story in Pisces and move into Aries for the first time, is romanticizing something that should not be romanticizing, or escaping into something because you don't want to handle reality, or blurring boundaries that are unhealthy. Because what you're looking for is a healthy balance, to be creative, to love unconditionally, but to be an individual and not let ancestral or past or current trauma plot the future that you're growing into, that new Aries launch that you're going into. Very interesting to think about. All right, so what we're going to do now is put up the chart. We're going to look at where this is going to be activating based off your sun sign and rising sign. Now, if you were born at night, I would recommend also listening to your moon sign. Again, if you don't know what those are and you know your time of birth, there's a link for a free chart underneath this broadcast. All right, let's get started. And they're Aries and Aries rising. All right, so this Venus retrograde that you're going to be working with as soon as we get to January the 28th is going to have a lot to do with a very private area of your life and a very public area of your life. And you have definitely already heard me start to highlight this overall section of your chart in any of the videos that I've already done. It's just a hot area. You're getting ready for some significant endings and beginnings. And where that Venus retrograde is going to go back to, the 24th degree of Pisces, it has to do with the subconscious. It has to do with your spirituality, things that are hidden and unseen from even you. So you have to follow your trigger to find your treasure. This is also connected to your ancestors. And I don't mean the grandparents that you remember or that your parents remember. I mean, even deeper than that. With that being said, I do think you're going to be aware of some family triggers or patterns that are starting to come up. And you're going to ask yourself, how can I break out of this and step into a new story? What does my transformation look like? What does my legacy look like? What do I believe and why do I believe it? And when Venus moves into Aries, you're going to feel really motivated. Like, this is me. This is what I want to do. And you're going to start to attract and motivate a lot of different moves in your life. However, across this first part of the year, all the way until we get into May, I would encourage you to be very cautious about anything that has to do with loans and legacy, family things, real estate things, inheritances, something that has to do with your home. Be cautious about how you're investing and what share is coming back to you. You don't want to say, okay, surrender, I'm done. You can just have it. I'm leaving. It's not worth the trouble. You want to ensure that this is karmically closed, that what you deserve is given to you and what is balanced out between your family and your ancestries and the spiritual world is all balanced out as well. It's going to be a bit of a tug of war, big endings, and it's not going to be very clear. You're going to have to follow your intuition. All right, I'll see you on the next video. Hi there, Taurus and Taurus rising. All right, so when we work with Venus moving through retrograde, you're going to feel this in two different areas that I've already highlighted for you, but this is going to give you another view of how this could unfold. So your ruling planet is Venus. This is a big deal for you. Venus is going to be in an area of your life that supports your dreams and wishes, of course, but also your friends, associations that you're connected to, people that you feel bonded to, one, your local environment. It could be family that you have chosen. And you want to be cautious of over idealizing these situations or forgiving hurts and then getting back into toxic relationships. It's healthy to forgive. You should forgive, but that doesn't mean that you kind of put the dirty clothes back on or you step back into the toxicity and you get into a whirlwind and you get lost into the story. Now, when Venus, just tips into Aries, that could also signify some big endings and beginnings or investments that you want to make when it comes to your home, your legacy, or, just your spiritual, something that you're doing behind the scenes. It could be a creative thing that you're also working on as well. However, as soon as you start to invoke those big endings and those big beginnings, or saying, you know what, I'm going to end this with love and passion. I'm going to make sure that I'm processing this. You're going to understand that you still have some loose ends that you have to tie up. Maybe there's something that you need to say to them that's hard to say, or maybe you need to listen to something they want to say to you that is difficult to hear in order to fully process this energy so it doesn't haunt you as you move into a new story that isn't a lot about spirituality, creativity, and big endings and beginnings, that it's just going to open up a brand new chapter for you. But in order to get from here to there, you have to understand where you are. All right, Taurus, I'll see you on the next one. Hi there, Gemini and Gemini rising. All right, so this video is going to highlight an area that you've probably already heard me talk about. It's a hot one for you. It has to do with your career and your reputation, how this impacts your home and work life balance, your partnerships and you as an individual, but also your allies, your dreams, your wishes, your ambitions, family that you choose, and those people that help have the same vision as you and they're going in the same direction so they can support you. So when Venus hits its shadow, it's going to be at this very high level of your chart. So maybe your leadership or someone you have idolized, people that you're like, this, I really look up to this person. They've always guided me. You're going to have a disillusionment, or you're going to maybe see it for what it is, or you're going to start to question reality around your sense of purpose or how you're leading or how you want to be known in the world. Now, when Venus moves into Aries, that's almost as if you're like, okay, this is me. I'm going to be friends with these people. I'm going to this direction. I'm launching. I'm taking that leap of faith. However, you may realize as Venus retrogrades that you need to double check your values. You need to kind of lean back into, okay, does this feel aligned with my purpose? Does this really help me feel connected to my home and work life balance? I have a harmony between myself and my partnerships. What lessons can I take with me and which ones do I need to leave on the table? It's an interesting dance because it's a very public area for you, Gemini. This is your role in the world, are people that you follow and their role in the world, and how you can make an impact that touches every corner of your life. Just be cautious around investments, over idealizing anyone, jumping in too deep. And that's an interesting thing to say, Gemini and Gemini rising, because I know that it's not that you keep things quote unquote superficial, but you do kind of like to keep things light in your life. So jumping in deep is not really your thing, especially at first glance. But I would just encourage you not to get so embedded into a new group that you forget other groups or associations or where you come from with this energy. It's good to forgive past leaderships, to learn from, authorities, parents, people in your life. I would look for those opportunities because if you can forgive them, you can understand them. And if you can understand them, then you can either lean into what you loved about the experience or ensure that you do not repeat whatever you didn't like or whatever you don't feel is healthy as you move into this new story. All right, see you next time. Hi there, Cancer and Cancer rising. All right, so this Venus retrograde that we're going to be experiencing in January is an interesting one because for the majority of it, it is in trine with your sun sign or your rising sign and trying to bring a nice, easy flow. And for you, especially if you're a Cancer rising, this would have to do with who you are as an individual, what you love without condition, your spirituality, your convictions, what direction that you're going to go in. However, when Venus gets here in January, and this planet's going to have a lot of interesting conversations with Neptune and the North Node and Saturn throughout this whole course between January and May, you are really reevaluating your convictions. You may also be looking at, who you are, how the world knows you, what you care about, why you care about it, the teachers that you have had, the beliefs that you have, what you're ready to teach. Big travel plans, wanting to go somewhere could also be a thing. And with this retrograde, I would just encourage you, if you are traveling anywhere or if you're booking any kind of plans, I would ensure that you have insurance or that you have a backup plan to something, because this investment, Venus has to do with investments and money, could not play out the way you want to. Or maybe you invest in something that's far away, or you invest in a trip and there's some kind of Venus, there could be some kind of issue that has you going back and forth over this point. So just keep that in mind. Anytime we have a retrograde, we want to make sure we give ourselves lots of safety nets. However, I will tell you, even with those safety nets, you're still going to be there's going to be something there you have to review, revisit, and redo. And when Venus peaks into Aries, and that's where the retrograde will begin, when it comes to your reputation, your sense of purpose, how you're known in the world, how you're able to activate almost every corner, your whole work-life balance, your individuality, your partnerships, Venus will magnetize that area and you will be very independent. And where you normally are very cautious and think about and nurture everything around you, during this phase, it's all about me. I love me and I need to love me. I have to put me first in order to love you, which is always healthy. But it could be that you overextend in that direction and this retrograde pulls you back and you have to lean back on your convictions. You have to remember who you were and what you loved about that in order to grow forward into this direction. Couple of things to remind you of if you didn't listen to the beginning of this podcast. With this type of Venus energy, this type of energy does promote forgiving, ensuring that we are cleansing toxic relationships so that we can move forward and they don't haunt us in our new lives. However, it can also bring in over idealizing something that we've experienced. Like, oh, it wasn't so bad. I could do that again. Or when you meet an ex or something, you remember all the good stuff and not the challenging things. You remember how it made you feel initially, but not how suppressed you felt when it was over. And that could be an ex friend, an ex lover, an ex boss, an ex dream, whatever. So, with this energy, we want to forgive, we want to grow, we want to connect with what we love, but we want to ensure that we're set up for success when you do launch out into the world. Because when it comes to your career and your reputation, there's a lot of energy coming into that sector of your life. All right. See you next time. Hi there, Leo and Leo rising. All right. So in 2025, this Venus retrograde is going to impact one of your financial houses, but also something that has to do with new directions and convictions and personal beliefs. It's really tied to a creative energy for you. So when Venus hits its shadow, it's going to be in an area of your life that has to do with royalties, your partner's money, your client's money, shared resources. It could be real estate investments. It could be tied to your actual home or any kind of investment that's not a short-term thing, but a long-term thing. So it could be that as you get into January, you're thinking about investing, you're being asked to invest, and there's a great opportunity that it just seems like it's aligned with you on so many different levels. And I would just be a little bit cautious of that from the gate because Venus is going to be close to Neptune, and Neptune blurs the boundaries. It doesn't make things clear. It makes it very ideal, like, oh wow, that's the dream, that's the vision, which is a good thing. But when it comes to legacy and finances and long-term things, you want to make sure that you are as clear as you can be and you have lots of space to navigate. Now, when Venus moves into Aries and it will begin its retrograde in Aries, you are thinking about new horizons, new directions, things that are aligned with your convictions and your personal beliefs. But it could be that you go too far in one direction. Or maybe you take that leap of faith or you jump down in the deep end. And when Venus moves into retrograde, you're going to have to reassess where you came from, what's important to you, why it's important to you, what can you forgive, what can you let go of so you can move into this new direction, or what do you need to ask for forgiveness for so you can move in this new direction. It's a very interesting dynamic, but I would definitely be cautious with any investments that you're working with and know that there is something hidden and unseen that's going to take some review, revise, redo energy around it. Okay. See you next time. Hi there, Virgo and Virgo rising. All right. So when we work with this Venus energy, it's pretty interesting for you because it's going to have a very public persona that has to do with your partnerships, but also impacts or activates your home work life balance, who you are as an individual, and who you partner with. So Venus, when it moves through Pisces, that's your partnerships. That's where it activates everything. It's going to be in really close conversations with Neptune, the nodes, Saturn, all as it moves between the beginning of its shadow and the end of its shadow. So January all the way into May. So I would just be a little bit cautious when it comes to contracts or long-term partnerships that you're making. It could be that it seems too good to be true, or it's the perfect vision or the perfect dream. It feels aligned with you on the spiritual soul deep level, and it 100% could be. But Neptune doesn't give up all of its secrets. And where Venus is, it's so happy and so exalted, it almost can't see the shadows. It can't see the contingencies and the agreements that you are trying to make. Keep that in mind as you step into January. Now, when Venus moves into Aries, and that's where it will retrograde, it's going to begin its retrograde and go all the way back into Pisces. Those first couple of degrees, it could be that you're like, this is the new legacy. This is my new story. I'm going through this big transformation. This is how I want my home to feel. This is how I want to feel on my mind and all kinds of internal energies. But it could be that as you launch into this big transformation or a big investment with someone else that is new and fresh, that you realize that you have to kind of go back and look at that agreement or look at who you're partnering with before you can go forward again. It's not going to be a like, yes, we're together forever. We're launching in this direction. It's not going to be that crystal clear. There's going to be a lot of back and forth energy. You're going to be using your Virgo discernment. You're going to be asking yourself, okay, what details do I need to work with? But again, it's going to be very hard for you to discern in this foggy energy that you're working with. You're going to have to look more within than without. But this energy, really pay attention to your partnerships and your long-term investments. All right. See you next time. Hi there, Libra and Libra rising. All right, so Venus is your ruling planet. So anytime Venus isn't doing anything, you definitely feel it. And Venus in retrograde is going to be an impactful one for you, not only because of where it's retrograding, but again, because it's your ruling planet. So when Venus hits its shadow for the first time, it's going to be in a blind spot for you. It's not really something that you can see head on. It has to do with your habits that are unconscious and conscious, the work, the mundane things that you do day in and day out, and how that plays into your overall health and wealth. Now, in this area, Venus is hanging out with a Saturn and Neptune and a North Node. It's just a very interesting, complex energy as it begins this shadow because there's this intense thing that says, I'm going to end this. I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to go into this new direction. But there's also this mystery. Like you're not even really sure about all the things you do need to wrap up and end before you can move into a new direction. And when Venus moves into Aries, it's going to be opposing you, but it's going to bring a lot of attention to your partnerships, your one-to-one connections. That could be romantic, but it has a lot to do with contracts and clients, how this plays into your social circles, your allies, and how you communicate and how you think. And it could be that you launch into this new partnership, this new agreement, and you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. And this is you're feeling very independent and balanced, like a leader in this connection. But then Venus, your ruling planet, moves into retrograde. And when it moves into retrograde, you may have to go back to the habits and the rituals and the mundane things that you were doing to understand how healthy this partnership is or how you would want to change this moving forward. It's an interesting dynamic to work with. And this is going to be a big back and forth energy for a lot of reasons, a lot of different transits as we move to the first part of 2025. But again, in this series, we're highlighting how these particular transits enhance that standing astride two worlds, something more behind the scenes for you to something that's more public that has to do with partnerships. All right, see you on the next one. Hi there, Scorpio and Scorpio rising. All right, so this Venus retrograde story that you're going to be working with, it enters its shadow on the 28th. It's not going to go into retrograde until the 10th of March, but everything from the 28th of January to the 1st of March, that story is what you're going to review, revise, redo, and revisit as we move to the retrograde that goes all the way to April 12th. Now, what I love about this for you is that when Venus is in Pisces, it's in trine with your sun sign or rising sign because it's a fellow water sign. And Venus loves being in Pisces. It's exalted. It's a beautiful energy. It's highly creative, falling in love, having kids, starting businesses, just putting all the pieces together, finding symmetry in your life is so easy when Venus is here. You're going to magnetize it. You're going to attract it. Now, with that being said, Venus is going to be in very close proximity to Neptune, who's getting ready to wrap up the story in Pisces and move into Aries for the first time. Neptune doesn't give up all its secrets. It does make it very creative. It does make it easy to fall in love, to kind of step into the vision and manifest, but it's not very clear about facts and hardcore. This is what it is. Now, when Venus moves into Aries, that's going to be a bit of a blind spot for you. It has to do with your habits that are unconscious and conscious, the work that you must do to support your overall health and your wealth, the mundane things that you do. And it could be that you have this big creative, project or this thing that you're doing and you bring it into the mundane, your daily ritual, but you're realizing that, you know what, there's something here I want to do differently about. I need to go back and recraft something, think about something before I go into this direction. I'm going to go back into that creative space. Now, with that being said, you're probably thinking, I'm not creative. What are you even talking about creative space? Maybe you are. But this could be that you are being invited once you kind of step out of the illusion or even into the new illusion, you're invited to forgive. It may be that you are invited or that you see that in order to transform and rise like the phoenix that the Scorpio is, that you're going to have to forgive something from the past, or you're going to have to understand it from a different angle to go a little bit deeper in order for you to grow in this new independent direction. And it could be that you've been so immersed in love or being a mother or starting a new business or falling in love that you're overprotective or dependent on this. And this energy is asking you to, realize, okay, this is what I need to take with me, but this is where I have to stand alone, or this is where I have to grow. That's my growing edge that I'm leaning into. So kind of keep that in mind as you move through the first part of 2025. See you on the next one. Hi there, Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. All right, so this Venus retrograde is going to highlight an area that we've been talking about in a lot of videos, but this is going to give you a different view of how the energy is unpacking. Now, Venus in Pisces, that's where it's going to begin its shadow on January 28th. Pisces is in square with you. Now, squares are activation points. You have to take action. You see it, you're motivated by it. Whether you love it or it's challenging, you have to take action. So Venus in this area can really motivate you to change things around your home, your foundations. It can activate changes around your partnerships, how you're known in the world, your home work-life balance, and honestly, every space in between. And there's going to be a lot of revisions around this. Another thing to consider is that where Venus is transiting, we can attract a lot of things. But we also want to beautify those areas. And by beautifying it, sometimes we have to invest or we spend more money. And the object is to attract and not to spend. That's going to be an interesting balance to work with that energy around your home base. So it could be that you're trying to remodel, revision, or redo something at your roots that impacts every corner of your life. Now, Venus will begin its retrograde on March 1st at 10 degrees Aries. So, everything that happens from January 28th to March 1st, that's what you're going to review, revise, redo during that period of time. The retrograde begins on March 1st and it ends on April the 12th at 24 degrees. Now, it won't be completely out of its shadow in this story all the way until May 16th. But when Venus moves into Aries, it moves into a very independent, intuition driven, loving area of your chart because now it's going to be in trine with your sun sign or rising sign. It's going to say, okay, let's fall in love. Let's take this leap of faith. Let's have a baby. Let's start a business. Let's go skydiving. Let's do something that makes us feel adventurous and alive, that feels right at the soul deep level. But it could be that as you move out in this new direction, you realize that you have to go back. You have to go back maybe to forgive, to look at something differently so you understand how you can grow out of it, how you want to take something there at your foundations and bring it out into the world in a creative way. It's going to be an interesting back and forth energy that you're working with around that period of time. But this is a long standing unfolding story. I would be very cautious about investing when it comes to your where you live, your home, your roots, and your foundations. You want to make sure that it does, if it seems too good to be true, that it probably is. And even if you can't see a flaw in it because you're so in love, that you have some wiggle room so that you can change your mind or adjust to certain things as you move forward with the story, because there's going to be something there. And I know I'm talking a lot about your home, but this could also be a job or a new, business or a career that you're trying to launch into. It could be a contract, a partnership, some kind of agreement that's just going to change your entire outlook. Be very cautious. You want to lean into what is working, what feels right, but know that there's an unfolding story. There's an unfolding story. The more you get to know the situation, you're going to see it a little bit differently. All right. See you next time. Hi there, Capricorn and Capricorn rising. All right. So the Venus retrograde that we're going to highlight in this video is going to happen in an area that you're going to hear me talk about a lot for you as we move into 2025 because it's highlighted by several transits. But this video should give you a different layer, a different perspective of how this planet, the Venus retrograde, is going to impact your life. Now, Venus is going to enter its shadow on January 28th in Pisces. This has to do with your local environment. And that's an interesting concept to think about because it's more than just your local environment, like your neighborhood. These are people and places and things that you talk to and go to every day. These are your brothers or sisters or aunts and your uncles. But it's also how you think, what your mindset about something, and how you communicate that to one-on-one with other people, but also when it comes to your alliances and your groups and people that are on that same track or that same vision as you. Venus is going to move through this area. She's very happy in this area, very creative. However, she's talking to Neptune, that could be very good. It could be great for visions and manifesting and, creative energy, things that are unseen, having faith. It's not good for hardcore contract. Let's agree on this because there's something there that you can't see. It could be a great period of time where you're reconnecting with old friends or mending, brothers and sisters and cousins or relationships. You're reflecting on the past. How did I get here? Where do I want to go from here? What is timeless about this? What grudges am I holding on to and how can I let go of them? Now, when Venus moves into Aries, it's going to travel all the way to the 10th degree. And that's where we'll go in retrograde on March 1st. But when it first steps into Aries, it becomes angular, especially if you are a Capricorn rising. And what that means is either way, even if you're not, it's squaring your sun or your rising sign. Squares motivate action. We see something, we have to do something. This is going to activate not only who you are as an individual, your personal brand, but also your whole work-life balance and your partnerships and every space in between. And it could be that you watch in this new direction. You're like, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to move here. I'm going to do this. This is my new spark. This is a new vision. This is how it's going to be. But you realize when Venus gets to that point that maybe the investment is not lining up the way that you thought it was going to be. Or maybe you have to go back and tie up some of the things in that old neighborhood before you can reestablish this new foundations. Or you still have to communicate or forgive or listen to someone who wants forgiveness or work through compassionate energy before you can fully step into this new direction. Now, Venus will move direct on April the 12th and go back over all this territory, but it will not be out of its shadow, completely out of the story that you're working on from January 28th until April 12th until May 16th. So think January 28th to May 16th, this story between that home base and your mindset, that's all up for reevaluation because of this Venus retrograde. Be mindful and aware of the investments that you're making because it has to do with your resources, the emotional connections, where you forgive, who you let in, healthy boundaries, boundaries that are being dissolved. Those are all things that are going to come up for you during this period of time. All right. See you next time. Hi there, Aquarius and Aquarius rising. All right. So today we're going to be highlighting the Venus retrograde. And for you, this is going to be happening in a bit of a financial sector, but also in your local environment or how you think and how you communicate. So Venus is going to enter its shadow on January 28th in Pisces, and that's going to activate, especially if you're Aquarius rising, your an area of your chart that has to do with your finances. What's important to you, why it's important to you. This could be food, it could be material things, it could be me time. It's important to you and it plays into your overall health and wealth. And Venus is very happy in this area. As long as it's following its spiritual path, it feels like it's right at the soul deep level. Venus is very happy and content. But during this period of time, talking to Neptune, who's getting ready to leave, there's a lot of mysticism. There's a lot of lack of clarity in when it comes to values. It could be that they're changing, they're adjusting, and you're not really sure who you're becoming, especially because now you have Pluto in your sign, and that's really helping you dig deep into the shadow work, the layers, and saying, this is my personal empowerment. This is what I need to let go of. This is what I need to embrace. Now, Venus will travel all the way until the 10th degree of Aries. Now, so the shadow begins on the 28th, retrograde begins March 1st, and it ends on April 12th. April 12th is when we're going to come back to that story that begins on January 28th. However, this entire story will not be over until May 16th. By that point, Venus is in a new part of the sky. But when Venus moves into that third house, it could be that you get out there and you start thinking and communicating things that are valuable to you. And then as they come out or this assertiveness that you have, you may see it in a different way. You may have to walk back some things like, is this my ego talking? Or is this me talking? How do I really feel about this? And you're gonna have to go back and dial into those values, dial into the self-esteem issues, or dial into the skill sets that you have or the potential that you have to gain resources, reevaluate that, get clear on that, like on a soul deep level, and then move into how you communicate it to other people once we move through these retrograde seasons. It's going to be an interesting dynamic that you're working with. But Venus is something that is connected to investments, love affairs, values, resources. And because this is in a financial sector, I would just be very mindful of where you are investing your resources and how you are building up your skill sets and your self esteem, because there's something that is great here that you can manifest and envision, but there's also something that you're not seeing that's going to unfold as we work through a lot of big changing energy during the spring season here where this retrograde is activating. All right, see you on the next one. Hi there, Pisces and Pisces rising. All right, so the spotlight is on you. You and Aries have a lot of energy moving through you in 2020. Now, with Venus, Venus loves being in your sign, your sun sign, your rising sign is exalted. It feels like it could be very creative. It could escape into everything. And Venus feels amazing on this spiritual, creative plane, this within. Like we are all one and we all love each other. Venus likes being here. But we'll be having some conversations with Neptune, who's getting ready to wrap up its story and move into Aries. It's going to be traveling over a really intense, big ending, big beginning energy. Venus will touch the shadow, the first degree that it's going to retrograde back to on January the 28th. The retrograde does not begin until March 1st when it travels to 10 degrees. It's going to stop at 10 degrees Aries, and it's going to move back all the way to the 24th degree of Pisces. Retrograde begins on March 1st around your birthday season. It ends on April the 12th. And the shadow getting out of the story, Venus getting into a new area of the sky, that will not happen until May 16th. So this is a long-standing story that you're working with, January 28th all the way to the 16th of May. Now, with Venus in your sign, changing the way you look, your personal approach, updating your website, your personal brand, really thinking about this is how I want to look and feel, and this is how it touches every corner of your life is very likely. It's a magnetic energy. It attracts things to you. Now, you are already a forgiving sun sign, a rising sign in Pisces. You understand that we are all connected. We are all one, whether I like you or not. We're all made of the same kind of thing here. So it's likely that you will be invited during this period of time to forgive yourself, to forgive people around you, to forgive actions or how you got here. You're gonna be thinking about, "Look, this is everything I did to get here, and I wish I would have done it that way." You're gonna be doing a lot of internal work, even though this is a very public area of your life. Now, with that being said, Saturn is in your sign, and I would definitely encourage you to lean into Saturn principles that it's been teaching you for the last year and a half, because this energy could dissolve boundaries, healthy boundaries. We don't want to dissolve healthy boundaries. We want to ensure that boundaries are in place. We want to forgive and have compassion for everyone and everything, but we don't want to absorb that negative energy if it's not part of our story. We want to say, I love you, but I can't be you. I had to walk my own path. And you don't even have to love them from a distance. You just have to have a healthy boundary so you understand who you are as an individual. So you're not equally reflecting those around you, but instead you're letting your own voice and your own light shine. And as Venus moves into Aries, that story kind of continues. You're going to be thinking about what's important to you and why it's important to you. And you may have to dial back into who am I energy. Now, at the same time, when Venus moves into Aries, that is a financial house for you. It has to do with your resources, your self esteem, and your ability, your skill sets to gain resources. And wherever Venus is, it attracts. So I do think you have the ability to attract a lot of resources as Venus tips into this area of your life. So you also want to be mindful of overreaching, overspending, or overinvesting, or thinking something seems too good to be true. And this would even have to do with getting a new job or a new habit or new ritual, something that has to do with your overall health and wealth. You want to be very mindful about those energies and give yourself room to change your mind because during those first couple of spring months, you will change your mind. There's going to be a different, some kind of news or story that comes up. You're going to see it differently. And it may be maybe you don't change your mind, but because of what comes up, you have to do something differently about it. There's more to it. It's unfolding. So kind of keep that in mind. Overall, this energy is going to touch almost every corner of your life. Definitely who you are, how you're known. Like this is the Pisces here, and the whole work-life balance, your partnerships, every space in between. But it's also deeply rooted and tied to what is important to you and why it's important to you. All right. I hope that was helpful. I will see you on the next video. All right. That is all the signs. We'll be back with the next transit in 2025. Please be sure to hit like and subscribe so you can keep up with this series of videos. See you next time.